The ridiculous reaction of a social media clip posted by the Eagles yesterday. Plus, is Vic Fangio on the Eagles coaching Mount Rushmore? And we talk about Sean Mannion looking to break the huddle much quicker here in 2026. Hey, what's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Eagles Latest. And wanted to start talking about the asinine reaction that just took place yesterday after the Eagles posted an 8-second video clip of Quinyon Mitchell intercepting Jalen Hurts. Now, the caption was right on cue because they're highlighting the all-pro cornerback Quinyon Mitchell. And the video absolutely exploded on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it. And as of recording right now, it has 14 million views. Do you realize that no other quarterback who has thrown an interception, if the team posted it, would have nearly that many views? Why? Because it's Jalen Hurts. Now, listen, there's multiple reporters saying that there has been, internal dismay with Jalen Hurts and criticism with how he's played over the last year or so. That's very well true, right? But the fact that there's publications out there saying, oh, was this an intern gone rogue? Was this a message to Jalen Hurts from the team? And they can use the rogue intern as a scapegoat? Like, what are we talking about? The Eagles have to highlight the defense too. And it just so happened that Jalen Hurts threw an interception. And if you watch the video, although we don't have the full package of information, right? What was the route? What was the timing? What was the concept? All that type of stuff. Everybody wants to be a head coach and analyze an 8-second video and say, oh, well, Jalen Hurts threw a bad pass. If you look at it, it looked like Hollywood Brown also ran a bad route, pulled up, and Quinyon Mitchell jumped it and made a good play like an all-pro cornerback would. So why is it blowing up? It just makes zero sense to me, this disdain and divide with Jalen Hurts. Listen, Hurts has flaws. There's no doubt about it. I'm not saying he's a perfect quarterback. You know, we could go on and on about, oh, is he a top 10 or whatever. That's not even the conversation. The conversation is the ridiculous reaction that went around social media and how that video blew up. Now, did the Eagles know what they were doing and knew that they were going to get views? Sure. I mean, social media team wants as much interaction as possible, right? That drives up numbers, that drives up ad revenue, that drives up everything. But at the end of the day, I think we have to get away from this mindset that quarterbacks have to be and are supposed to be perfect in practice. You know, you got one of the beat writers keeping stats and making graphics of the grades that Jalen Hurts receives from him. Like, I just don't get it. I really don't. That is not the end all for how the season is going to pan out. Jalen Hurts is learning new wide receivers. The wide receivers are learning a new quarterback. You don't think it's plausible that there might be miscommunication, there might be a mistake by both parties, or by just one that results in a turnover? I just don't understand those out there that are just constantly looking for bad plays from Jalen Hurts or from any quarterback across the NFL. I just feel like we've gone too far from the plot where this is practice. Teams are trying new things, right? They're trying new offenses, especially the Eagles. So it really shouldn't be a big deal, but of course it is because it involves Jalen Hurts. Now there's people saying, well, why would they post such a video and all this stuff? Because you got to highlight the defense too. You know, okay, was there another camera angle maybe that didn't show Jalen Hurts throwing the ball? Perhaps. You know, there's cameras everywhere now at these practices. Some coaches, some players don't love it. Christian Parker, former Eagles coach, now the new defensive coordinator of Dallas, recently said that he hates it. He doesn't really understand why fans and media record everything and are allowed to. So it's just gotten so far off what this is supposed to be. It's a learning time, right? It is a time to grow and understand, okay, this is what you like. This is what I like. Let's mesh it together. So I'll get off my soapbox now. I just think it was absolutely crazy, the reaction that it got, and all the different explanations or possible reasons why that video was posted, other than the team is allowed to post a video of Quinyon Mitchell making an interception, regardless of who the quarterback is. I mean, that's my final thought on that. So let me know your thoughts in the comments. Do you think that it was not a big deal, or do you think, hey, yeah, the Eagles shouldn't be showing Jalen Hurts throwing an interception? But to me, I think it just shows the natural atmosphere of practice, right? Like, mistakes are made. That's why they are doing this. That's why they're doing it for multiple weeks on end to get ready for the regular season. So just my 2 cents there. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. Also want to know your thoughts on the Eagles coaching Mount Rushmore. I think Vic Fangio is getting very close, if not already on, the Mount Rushmore of Eagles coaches. Now, you could go back and just do an all head coaching one. I'm looking at like the last 10, 15, 20 years, right? You've got Jim Johnson, who was one of the beloved defensive coordinators. Obviously, Andy Reid probably goes up there for turning the franchise around and having that 4-year run to start the 2000s. I don't know. Do you put Nick Sirianni up there? I think there's some people that might want to make that argument. He's been to 2 Super Bowls. He's been in the playoffs all 5 seasons. He's been the head coach. He's one of the most winningest coaches in franchise history and NFL history. So there's certainly an argument to be made there. Obviously, you've got Jeff Stoutland, the beloved offensive line coach. But I think Vic Fangio is certainly in that conversation as well. And it's not only because of what he's done for his defense and how he's turned this defense into a top 5 unit each of the last couple of years he's been the DC, but also the way he just tells it like it is, right? I just think that it really resonates with the city. It resonates with the fan base. And I think that's what would help propel him because I believe he is a fan favorite. Among all the coaches, and this is no disrespect to Nick Sirianni or Sean Mannion and Michael Clay, but I think Vic Fangio is appointment viewing. I think you have to hear his press conferences. You have to watch them because he gives you actual information. Now, Sean Mannion seems pretty good as well. He seems like he has a nice plan of attack, and he's not going to give away his entire offensive playbook, but he's also been telling us how he wants the offense to be run. He's not hiding the fact that he wants it to be aggressive. But Nick Sirianni talks in circles. Michael Clay, I think it just falls victim of he's special teams, right? I mean, we really only care as long as the offense and defense is doing really well. Special teams obviously very important, but it's third in the pecking order. I mean, let's be honest. So I think with Vic Fangio's personality, his bluntness, and his straightforwardness, I think that makes him a fan favorite. I think there's a lot of fans that enjoy watching and listening to Vic Fangio talk about his defense. Whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, he is going to be brutally honest, and he usually doesn't beat around the bush. And I think that's what would propel him to a Mount Rushmore spot of Eagles coaches, over the last 20 years at the very least. And maybe you can make a case that he would be a top 4 coach of all time, depending on how the rest of his coaching career goes with the Eagles. I mean, if they have another top unit on defense this year and it helps win another Super Bowl, I think that'd be very hard not to include him on a Mount Rushmore for this organization. So just want to know your thoughts below. I thought he just continues to have great quips and one-liners. He jokingly called Quinyon Mitchell a virgin in the regular season because Mitchell still doesn't have a regular season interception, but then he mentioned how Q would quickly remind you that he has 4 postseason INTs, which is actually kind of a remarkable stat if you think about it, for how many more regular season games Quinyon has played compared to playoff games. But the fact that he's got 4 in the postseason when the games mean even that much more is certainly a unique stat. No doubt about that. So let me know your thoughts. Does Fangio make your Mount Rushmore? Is he close? Who would you put on your Mount Rushmore for Eagles coaches right now? over the last 20 years. And we could even go back to all time. I mean, obviously, there's great coaches in the past as well, pre-Andy Reid, of course. So we'd love to know your thoughts on that. Last but not least, want to talk quickly about Sean Mannion being more adamant about breaking the huddle early. Brooks Cabana of The Athletic had a really good article out, and he really broke down nicely where the Eagles stood last year in terms of breaking the huddle and snapping the football, right? The Eagles were leading and led the NFL with 150 plays with 1 second left on the play clock last season. They averaged 19.1 seconds left when breaking the huddle, which was the 12th slowest, down from 20.4 in 2024, where they were in the middle of the pack at 15th. So Sean Mannion goes out and says that it's, quote, critical to be the ones applying pressure to the defenses. And then Brooks breaks down some of the big plays during last season. And he's got a lot of stats here that you really should check out over at The Athletic. But this is pretty interesting, I think. You know, like the fact that they led the league in the most plays with 1 second on the play clock. That's interesting to me because I think sometimes that made the Eagles more predictable, but then it also helped them at times as well. He points out that Hurts had a 0.036 EPA per dropback last season on last second plays. That ranked 10th amongst starting quarterbacks. He threw 9 of his 25 touchdown passes with 1 second left on the clock, and he mentioned some of them. The go-ahead 4th and goal throw to Smith against the Rams, the 26-yarder to Brown that put Minnesota away, the 47-yard bomb to running back Saquon Barkley that gave the Eagles an initial 2-score lead in that Denver Broncos game. But then he also talked about how it also hindered the Eagles as well. The Eagles' 44 last-second runs in 2025 were significantly less efficient than their other runs. The Eagles also ranked 5th in the NFL with 8 delay of game penalties, which were the most in the Coach Sirianni tenure. So obviously there was pros and cons to that, but it certainly seems like the Eagles are scrapping that mentality moving forward. Mannion's run game is influenced by Kyle Shanahan and Sean McVay's offensive principles, heavy dose of zone blocking schemes and wide zone concepts, and it requires what Mannion has often called a, quote, marrying of the pass and run to make both plays look identical until the decisive moment. And listen, this is going to be interesting, right? Vic Fangio even said, hey, like Jalen Hurts is doing a really good job with this new offense. He mentioned how a lot's been made about all these different coordinators since he's been with the Eagles, but Fangio essentially pointed out that it's the same offense every year, except this season. He said that this is different, and I think he's doing a great job. So I think we'll have less gray hair, if you will, yelling at the team to snap the ball because the play clock on the TV says 1 second. I do think the Eagles are going to get the play, and they are just going to trust it, and they are going to use their physicality and talent to just better teams at the line of scrimmage. And it sounds like the offensive line really likes that mentality as well. So just thought it was an interesting tidbit. Obviously, you could read the whole article over at The Athletic. I thought it was really well done. A lot of numbers that are kind of hard to just verbalize to you. So I don't want to bore you in that regard, but definitely check it out if you're interested over at The Athletic. That just about does it for this episode of Eagles Latest. As always, I appreciate you watching. Hit that like button. More importantly, hit that subscribe button. We're over 400 subscribers now. Would love to get to 500 by week 1 when the Washington Commanders head to South Philly to take on the Eagles to open up the season. And as always, you could take the podcast on the go via Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Let me know your thoughts in the comments on that social media clip with Jalen Hurts throwing the INT. Is Vic Fangio on your Eagles coaching Mount Rushmore? And what are you excited most moving forward for the season? We'll talk about some player groups I'm most excited to watch in the preseason game on Saturday, and we'll break that down tomorrow. Until then, have an awesome Thursday, and we'll chat tomorrow.